Welcome to Entreprogrammers Podcast, the podcast for developreneurs, with your hosts, Josh Earl, Derick Bailey, and John Sonmez, the podcast where you get to be a fly on the wall listening to real conversations of three developers trying to tackle the challenges they face as entrepreneurs.
Hey, John Sonmez here, and I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank the sponsor for our podcast, SignalLeaf. Without SignalLeaf, we wouldn't have a place to host our podcast, and as you know, SignalLeaf is actually from one of our own here at Entreprogrammers. It is the creation of Derick Bailey. So Derick is actually the owner and creator of SignalLeaf, and it's a podcast hosting service. So if you are interested in creating your own podcast, go on over to signalleaf.com and sign up for an account today and check out how easy it is to get started. The thing I really like about SignalLeaf is just how easy it makes it for hosting your podcast. Of course, I have my own podcast, Get Up and Code, that I host at SignalLeaf, and I've been very happy with it. We're hosting Entreprogrammers there as well. And so thank you again, SignalLeaf, for sponsoring this show. And don't forget to check out SignalLeaf at signalleaf.com if you're interested in starting your own podcast.
We're on there. Yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to broadcast this right away. Right. So I called this bonus. So
okay.
Yeah. Thanks guys for meeting up. So what I wanted to talk about was I'm trying to make a major life decision right now.
Right.
Like this literally will shape the future of my life. So I told you guys that I got accepted into that startup accelerator, the Dream It.
Right. Yep. Is my camera not coming through?
Oh yeah, your camera's not coming through.
Yes, it is not correct.
John's
is cutting in and out.
All right.
Oh yeah.
It's cool to hang out.
Okay.
All right. Sorry. Anyway, so John.
Yeah. So we got accepted into the Dream It program, the Philadelphia one, right? And then we applied for the Tampa Health Box is another startup accelerator, but it's in Tampa, or they're going to be in Tampa this year. We just got accepted into that one, right? So now both of these programs, they basically give you $50,000 for your startup, and office-based mentoring, VC connections, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
These are both health industry ones, so it's like Blue Cross Blue Shield is basically the ones that are like behind both of these programs.
Okay.
So we turned down the Philadelphia because the Tampa is much more convenient when we're both living in Tampa.
Right.
But now I'm kind of in this weird situation where I have to decide whether I even want to do this at all.
Right.
So like I've got a few options on the table here. So one option is that I basically become a 40% owner in this company that I'm currently a 2% owner in, right? And the deal with that would be it'd be vested over 4 years, so like 10% per year.
Right.
The other option would be to become a 10% owner in the company, like so an additional 8% vested over 4 years, but I would be minimally involved. I'd be like a figurehead, like CTO, like I'd be giving advisement, and I'd be going through the incubator though. That's really the big thing I'd be doing.
Right.
And then option 3 is to kind of turn down the whole thing. Now, what makes this hard to decide is basically, so I've got that trip to Hawaii, right, scheduled that I've already paid for and everything, that for 2 months, right, for August and September.
Right.
I basically have to cancel that because if we go to the investors that are the incubator and we say, yeah, but John's going to be gone for 2 months of the incubator program, they're probably going to say, well, yeah, we're going to have to ask you to not join the program then. Also, I've been invited to speak at OrDev in Sweden in November 4th, right? But the program ends like November 6th. So I pretty much have to cancel that too because that's when demo day is right, at the end. These are like Y Combinator, basically. These are
right.
So you have demo day, that's when you're pitching the VCs, and if I'm gone when it's pitching the VCs time, then that kind of is no good.
Yeah.
So I basically have to, and if I cancel OrDev at this point, like, because I've canceled, the Warm Crocodile conference, I'll pretty much never be asked to speak at an international conference. I'm pretty sure I'll make the blackball list,
Right.
Well, but I mean, although you are early enough, is this early enough out that you think that
What's your talk at OrDev?
How to market yourself as a software developer. See, that's another. And then creating an automated testing framework with Selenium. So 2 talks.
Yeah.
So in addition to that,
I can
right?
offer an alternate for your market yourself, not me, but somebody else that you and I both know that does the same material. We could offer alternatives to ORDev.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Suggestions like, hey, I know this guy. He also does this material.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. But then I'm sort of, I don't know. I mean, regardless, that's not as big of a deal. But yeah. So to complicate the matters worse, right? Basically, the 16-week program, the incubator program, it's in downtown Tampa. I'm about an hour commute from it. Right now, I work out of my office. It's right. So I'll have to not go to Hawaii for 2 months. I'll get compensated for that because they're going to give us $50,000. So if my Hawaii trip might cost around $10,000. So I'll get that paid back to me.
You really should ask for that to be specifically paid back on top of the $50,000.
Well, the thing is, they don't know about it. So the co-founder, the guy who really owns the company, is said, "I'll write you a personal check. I don't care because
Okay.
He wants to be in the incubator."
Right.
So regardless, I mean, I'll be covered there. But the thing is, if I do this, I'll basically be working. I'll have to go down and commute to the co-working space for the startup place and do all the meetings and whatnot. But it's a 2-hour commute, there and back. So I basically will have to give up working out and all this because I'll be working essentially 10-hour days. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's the stupid startup life.
Yeah, is it right? But it's going to be compressed because it's the compressed 16-week program, so it's going to be nuts, right?
Right.
So I mean, it's not that I'm afraid of hard work. It's just that it's a lot to give up. And force my family to give up a trip to Hawaii to get,
right.
And also they were going to go to Sweden as well. They were going to go to Copenhagen and meet me there, and we are going to tour, that. So it's kind of okay, both of these trips are canned. I have to, but now, okay. So now here's the upside, right? So this is what makes this a tough decision. These companies, they basically want to invest in companies that they think are going to be worth $50 million to $100 million exits within 3 to 4 years.
Right.
So
that's
even just owning
the startup gamble. If a company is not going to be worth that within 3 or 4 years or whatever, then it's not worth their time. The problem is only 1% of the companies that they invest in end up doing that. The vast majority of startup companies should be profitable, but they're not allowed to be because they're in startup mode with VCs, where you're not allowed to be profitable.
And I think if you're in, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think if you're in one of the major incubators like Y Combinator, Techstars, Dreamit,
right.
These ones, right? That you have a much better shot. Maybe it's a 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 shot of doing well, of being sold and having an exit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a good chance that my 10% equity could be worth $10, $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
It could also be worth nothing. Right, that's certainly a possibility. With the guy that's running this company right now, he is the bulldogiest bulldog I've ever seen. I mean, this guy, he has a guy from an outsourced person from the Philippines that every morning she delivers him 300 email leads every single morning, and every day he emails 300 CEOs. And then he gets a response and sets up meetings with 15 of them every single day. He demos the product 15 times, and that's how he's acquired 12 customers already. From this process. He's insanely driven. You know what I mean? If you're going to bet on a horse, you bet on this guy.
Right.
So, because I already told him, I said if it was anyone but you, and they asked me to do this, I'd just say nah. I'm not. I'm already.
Right.
And that's the other part of this, right? Is you guys know, I want to finish my book, and then I want to relax and play video games for a while, and chill out for like a year and
Kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of the opposite.
Exactly. This is like the polar opposite, heaven and hell. I mean.
Yeah, so I think I've explained. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like mentally, I'm like, man, I need a break, but I'll be going straight from the book to bam, startup land, right?
How much of this would you be delegating to that co-founder, anyways?
Well,
what would your role and your actual influence be in any of the three options?
so in option 1, where I'm a 40%, I'm basically the CTO of the company in not just in name. I would be, we'd be 50. Almost the only difference, he'd be 60 and I'd be 40. So we'd be essentially from a workload perspective, 50-50 partners, right? We'd be both running the company. Mm-hmm. So that's and that's probably at best case, it's like a 2 to 3 year exit.
But that's 60-40 after you give the investors how much?
So the investors will get the incubator gets 7% for the 50 grand that they invest, and then there's a couple of other smaller advisors that have a couple of percent there.
Okay, so we're looking at probably 90% split between you and him, 60-40.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So pretty big chunk. The second option, the 10%, basically would be me going through this entire program, right, as full bore, right? I'll be there at all the meetings doing 50-50 workload. But then after the program ended, then for the first year, I'd be flying out to talk to VCs and doing that, being more involved in the company, not full time by any means. Mm-hmm. And then for years 2, 3, 4, I'd basically be in the advisor position with a little bit more responsibility than what I have now. It might be just doing a little bit more on the architecture side and things like that. So, and then,
Option 3 is keep what you have, or is it just get out entirely?
It'd be keep what I have. The 2% deal, couldn't really be pulled.
Just as a figurehead advice every now and then kind of thing.
The only problem is, here's where things get tricky too, is if I do option 3, chances are, the company is not going to be able, the other co-founder is not going to be able to get into the incubator because we applied together, right, in the incubator. Right. We pitched them together. I don't think. They probably would say, yeah, we thought it was going to be the two of you guys. So, most companies don't want to invest in a single person company. Right.
It seems to me like they are setting you up to either go all in or get completely out. Frankly, I think option 2, the 10%, where you still do all of the work, is a worthless option.
Because most of the work is in that 16-week period, right?
That's where
the company is made, or the success.
If you're gonna do option 2, I'd be asking for a 25%, because you're gonna be doing that much work for the first 16 weeks. You're gonna be giving up your life, canceling all of these things that you had scheduled, with the very distinct possibility of never being able to go back to ORDEV or other conferences over in the UK and Europe, and all for the possibility that you might be able to have something hugely successful at the end of this. That's a major chunk of your life for the next 4 months out the window. And for 10%, not a chance. No way. I would turn down the 10%. The 2%, that there's the risk of not being in the incubator, and I think that's a fair risk. I have a little bit of experience in talking about these scenarios because my dad used to be a VC. Mm-hmm. So I helped him understand and analyze tech startups for about 5 years back in the .com era, and I never had to deal with that situation. So I never, I don't know, you'd have to ask somebody else that has experience with that for advice on the 2%, whether or not you'd even be able to make it into the startup or the accelerator. So for me, man, if this was me, I'll tell you, I'd say no to all of it.
Really?
Yeah, I would keep your 2% and let your life be your life instead of somebody else's. And I have a little bit of experience, not in the VC world, but in once in a lifetime opportunities to back that up. And my experience in once in a lifetime opportunities is that they are never once in a lifetime opportunities.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Because about 7 years ago, just after my son was born, I had what I thought was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It was a very large, very lucrative contract with the company that I was working for at the time, and it would have required me driving to Austin every day for this.
Okay,
Well, not North Austin, which would be like an hour and a half, but South Austin, which would have been 2.5 hours.
Okay.
And I was, all starry-eyed and giddy with excitement about the opportunity. One, for the mentor that I was working with at the time. We hired him to help us pitch this project. He was a guy that I desperately wanted to work with. Two, for the style of development that we were going to be doing, which was going to be full-on Agile, Scrum, Lean, you name it. We were doing it with the mentor's 10 years of experience leading the charge.
Right.
It was going to be, brand new offices for a really cool client with an awesome project that was really going to help out a lot of people. It was almost startup type world, except it was a project for, some organization down in Austin. And I had convinced myself that this was a once in a lifetime opportunity and convinced my wife that it was as well.
Yeah.
And very nearly made my wife's life a living hell by convincing her that I needed to do this. And it wasn't until she broke down crying at the thought of me being gone so often and not being around to take care of our son that I realized, okay, wait a minute, this is bad for my family. Whether or not this is good for me, this is bad for my family. Therefore, it's by definition bad for me. And so I turned it down, and I'm glad I did, not just because we ended up not getting the contract and I saved a whole lot of problems prior to then, but because I found out very shortly after that what I thought was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity was not a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I was given the opportunity to do the same things very shortly after that, and without having to make my life or my wife's life a living hell. So in weighing whether or not you want to do this, you really need to ask yourself whether or not this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, or is this an opportunity that presented itself to you because you have created the circumstances in your career and in your life in which these opportunities will present themselves?
Right. That's a good
point.
point.
I would bet money on that the reason you are able to have this choice right now is because you have set yourself up with enough of a market, enough of a mind share, enough attention in the developer world, especially in the Tampa area, that people will seek you out because they want what you have, and that you would be able to find another opportunity when it's not going to be so detrimental to the plans that you already have. Now, on the other side of that coin, you might look at Hawaii and say, meh, and you might look at Ordev and say, whatever, and it's not that big of a deal. And there's going to be some headache involved in canceling plans and changing things around and whatnot, but it might be worth it to you. But I personally would not sacrifice the plans that I had, especially knowing that you are currently writing that book and have plans to relax after that book. You're going to go from burnout straight into burnout.
Yeah.
And that is a bad, bad, bad recipe.
I know, that's what I'm afraid. I'm like, if the timing were different, it'd be an easier decision.
Right.
But it's like, I'm like, can I muster up the energy to?
Timing is everything.
Well, yeah. Let me ask this question. Maybe you guys have a better handle on this. How hard is it to get into an accelerator? Like, is this an incubator, accelerator? Is this like, I mean, this isn't Y Combinator. I know that's the hardest one to get into, but but Dream It and Techstars and I mean, Healthbox maybe is not as, but to get into one of these, in my understanding, is pretty difficult. But maybe that's because it's mostly 20-year-olds trying to get in. I don't know.
Do you have any advice on that, Josh?
No, sorry.
I have analogies for that, which is the best I can do. And my analogies come down to research grants, which I know a little bit about because that's what my wife does. She applies for research grants.
Okay.
And with research grants, it is a very competitive market. There will be a grant for something related to social psychology or positive psychology or the other, minor variants that she deals with. And she will go up against 5 or 10 different people that want this grant, and she will, produce a plan, produce a study outline, produce all this material, and apply for the grant, and make it through however many rounds of feedback and review and changes and everything, and sometimes she gets the grant, sometimes she doesn't.
Right.
And I would bet that the startup world is the same, because you continuously hear about accelerators accepting new companies and graduating companies, and they've built a business model on bringing companies in so that they can work their asses off and produce something in that time frame so that they can get ejected out of the accelerator into the real world.
Right.
So there is a regular interval of these accelerators accepting new people, new projects, new companies. Whether or not you make it into this accelerator, chances are you're going to have the same opportunity with the same accelerator, maybe even with the same startup, 16 weeks from now when they're ready to accept the next round, and it might be better timing for you.
Right.
You're probably going to have to apply for it again, and there's going to be history there where they say, well, last time we accepted you and you said no. And you're going to have to be able to straight face, no nonsense, say, look, these circumstances, we're ready now.
Yeah.
We have this, and these are the reasons why.
Now, I wouldn't. I mean, I guess part of it I think of is that I'll be left behind with this company, right? Because I guess what would I be?
Right.
It's almost like, to me, it's like I'm trying to figure out if being accepted in an accelerator is such a big deal, because to me it's like I was just handed this in my lap, right? Like, this guy, approached me, said, hey, I'm in the Tampa area. Would you be an advisor for my company? And then he did all this work to build this, to get to build the company, get these clients in. He basically handed it in my lap. Here, you can have 40% of this company, and I got us accelerated in Accelerator. Or, I mean, I helped get us accepted into Accelerator because I did the pitch and everything. But
sure.
I mean, it's his work building the company. So it's like it's handed in my lap, and I'm like, well, I could probably build a company and try to pitch it to an accelerator, but that might take a lot of work.
Yep.
But here's like the shortcut. But the flip side of that also is that this is not my dream.
Right.
This company is a health company, and it's helping people to become fit in their in their work fitness programs. So it's a wellness company, but it's not my dream. I didn't create the idea. I created the company.
Someone else's
I'm not in love with
dream and someone else's empire.
Right, exactly.
And you could be financially profitable from that, but it wouldn't be your dream or your empire.
Yeah.
It would be you profiting off of someone else.
I mean, if we go through the accelerator program after 16 weeks, I'm sure we're reshaping the entire company, and it would become more of my. It might not be my dream, but it'd be my baby at that point. It
could become your dream because of the investment that you have in it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where I'm. That's
You've basically talked me out of it.
Yeah.
As you were talking about this, John, I mean, you were talking me out of it the whole time too. I mean, two couple thoughts I have.
Okay.
The only thing that I heard that sounds at all attractive to me about this whole thing is the guy that you're working with.
Right.
He sounds like a good partner.
Yeah.
And somebody, like you said, that I would want to put my money on, and he's definitely got some hustle. Sounds like he's smart about how he's been doing this, doing the business side of things. So that is pretty encouraging. But I've known you for several years now, and this is the first time I felt like John Sonmez is human. Right, dude. Like I feel like you're kind of burning out a little bit, and you've been going really hard for a long time, and this is the opposite.
Do you remember the movie Men in Black, the very first one, where at the beginning of it,
Tommy Lee Jones at the post office or something? Yeah.
So he's working with Patrick Warburton at the very beginning of the first episode of the first one, and or whoever it is, and the ends up in a situation where his partner is looking up at the sky, saying, "Do you ever just stop to look at them again?"
Uh-huh.
And I'm feeling like you're that guy right now, John. You're because of the conversations that we've had in the last month, month and a half, that have been very existential in nature.
Yeah.
And
I think that's true. Yeah.
And I really truly believe that you were handed this opportunity because you're the kind of person that other people want to have on their team when they approach an accelerator. Just given the way that this has all been handed to you, I can almost guarantee you that if you want this to happen at some point in the future, it will happen again. It's not a question of if, but when, and more importantly, when you're ready.
Right. That's a good way of thinking of it. That I considered that a little bit. I was thinking if I went and asked, if I said, hey, I'm looking for a co-founder, or some company's looking for a co-founder so they can pitch to an accelerator.
Right.
Wouldn't I be a pretty good pick for someone to give me 40 or 50% of the company because I can help them get into the accelerator?
Yep.
So that's a good point. That kind of reconfirms, and you're right. I have been having kind of an existential crisis because I've been working so damn hard for like 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm kind of like, okay, I feel selfish and kind of childish to say, okay, I paid my dues, now I want to collect. But but at the same time, I'm like, man, do I really want to push it 4 years out? I kind of feel like I earned this vacation and a bit of a break.
Right.
Well, even if I want to get back into it in 6 months or so, because I can't stand being bored, but maybe I need a year. I have no idea how long it'll take me to recover mentally to be ready for another challenge again, or if I even will after maybe this is it. Maybe I'm like, okay, this is.
Well, to me, the 4-year thing is a complete non-starter. I mean, like to get where you are, and then would you? I mean, like you basically, you're I don't know what the chances of you making, say, is it a 1 in 100 chance of making, $30-40 million? Like even that seems high to me.
Yeah, more like 1 in 1,000.
Based on like, I mean, I'm optimist, right? But based on what I know about the industry, healthcare being the biggest growing industry, right? Based on what I know about companies that come into accelerators where they don't even have any customers or anything, and we've got 12 customers that are paying customers, and some big contracts, big companies that are like, and based on what I know about how, the founder of the company works and his bulldogness and how excited the accelerator said, well, we blew them away, and I am personally like making the decision based on a 50-50 chance.
So you have to understand that the accelerator is going to blow smoke up your ass if they accept you. It's their job to make you feel like you're the king of the world. If they don't do that, they aren't doing their job, because they are going to whip you to death and work you like you would not believe. So they have to make you feel that way. Otherwise,
that
you
makes
wouldn't
sense.
sign up for it.
That's a good point. Yeah, so I shouldn't really take that into
Right.
consideration.
I mean, the little 2-second elevator pitch that you gave us earlier, this does sound like a pretty solid company. I mean,
Oh yeah, totally.
it's not. This is not like
This to me
not
sounds
right.
like a profitable company that should
Right.
be bootstrapped into existence.
Right.
Well, but see here's the thing: is like this company could definitely be profitable if I just poured my effort into just even 25% in helping the company get more sales and stuff. Like we can make this a lifestyle business that would maybe be $1 million in a couple of years. It could be a $5 million business, and we could each be as founders be making $300,000-$400,000 a year from the business, right? With few employees, mostly software-based business, But here's the thing: there's a huge difference between being a $5 million business and being a $100 million business, and that's and again that becomes the same thing. It's like, well, John, you could basically retire and you've got maybe a couple $1 million and you can
John, you could
live off of
retire
that.
right now and not have to worry about it.
But that also becomes there's a huge difference between like retiring and having $3 million net worth and retiring and having a $20 million net worth, right?
Which one do you care about? Which lifestyle do you want to have?
I'm fine with having a $500,000. I mean, I would live in I'd rather be retired, like do what I want to do and live in a friggin' 1-bedroom shack, right?
How did you even get to this point?
Which is exactly what you've been saying for the last month.
Right.
But I can't subject my family to living in a
Talking me
1-bedroom
out of
shack.
it.
So my level had to go up to where it is now, which is the house that I have now. A $225,000 4-bedroom house, not a huge that we can live in and I can pay for. So that's the standard, because that's the lowest standard that I would accept for my wife and daughter. Even though I would live in a 1-bedroom shack. So, but there is still an appeal, right? To say, well, if you could be a decamillionaire, well, you could live a totally different lifestyle. Like there's a big gap between having $3 million and having 10 or 20 million.
Sign me up for that without having to do that kind of work.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's not my aspiration. Some people have aspiration. Like the founder, the other, the co-founder of the company, the main, he has an aspiration to live in downtown Tampa in a nice, historic house and hobnob it with the mayor and all this stuff, right? That would be nice. I'm not going to say it wouldn't be nice, but it's not my dream. But it is totally his dream.
Right.
So, and that's the other piece of it too. Is it's like I hate to crush his dream by not joining the accelerator. If I could help him at any.
Imagine how much worse it would be if you crushed his dream by joining the accelerator.
And burning out.
Think about it from that perspective. If this is not your dream, if this is not something that you can pour your heart and soul into, if this is just an investment for you, imagine how much more crushing it would be for you to go into the accelerator and not give it 200% like he's going to.
If I get into the accelerator, I would give it my all, right? If I did it, whether
you would give it
10 or
100%.
40. Right. Now there's a chance I could have a nervous breakdown.
Right.
But I wouldn't be able to give it that afterwards necessarily, right? Because it would be an investment. But you got a good point.
Yeah, I mean, if I reframe this to say, you give up everything that we're talking about giving up, 16 weeks, you're paid for vacation, you're possibly endangering your future in the area that you actually care more about, and I would give you a 1 in 50 or a 1 in 100 chance at making $5 million. I don't know, would you do it?
No, I mean if the odds are that much weighed, then no, because it would have to be my dream. I mean, the only thing I would take a 1 in a 50 million or 50 chance or 1 in 100 chance of in devoting all that work would be something I'd be totally passionate about by myself on my own, like creating a video game or something that I'd really wanted to. I don't care if I make money. I care if this thing exists.
Right.
And this is not that for me.
One other point. what does your wife think? I mean, you don't have to answer that if you don't
No,
want
no,
to.
no.
That was going to be my last question.
Yeah,
That's a huge factor. Well, I mean, basically, because we had planned this Hawaii trip, and then even the Sweden thing, right? So I mean, that was my first question. Was I asked her? I said, it's up to you whether or not we cancel the Hawaii. Like, I don't want to like force you to do this. And it turned out that, like, I mean, she's okay with canceling the Hawaii. She'd prefer not to in the other trip, but it turns out, like, we listed like the sacrifices, and when it was like, okay, you have to commute 2 hours, right, for 16 weeks is a short period of time, I guess, but
Right.
but when you add it up, it was like commute 2 hours. It's like you're probably going to work 10-hour days, so that's 12 hours you're going to be gone. Right now, both of us go to the gym together in the mornings to work out, so we wouldn't be able to do that. I probably would have to give up lifting weights for that whole time period, because I don't imagine I'd have the time, because I'd have to sacrifice that for my family.
You have to install the gym in the accelerator.
Yeah, but there was I mean, that was kind of the list. So she's more on the side of that 16-week period would suck bad enough that she would say don't do it. But she said, if you really want to do this, I'll support you in doing it. But she said, like, rate how bad you want to do this accelerator, aside from the money, just the opportunity or whatever yourself. And I had to honestly give a 5 to the rating, because the biggest fear that I have is missing an opportunity, and that's I don't know, that's kind of how I've lived my life.
Yeah.
But it's worked out for me so far, right? Like
I am right there with you on that. And this comes back to the circumstances that you've created in your career, which have allowed this opportunity to come to fruition. And while you would be missing this opportunity right now, I don't believe that you would be missing. I don't believe that this is the only opportunity you would have to be in an accelerator with the possibility of making 20 or 30 million.
Somebody could approach you at OrDev.
Right.
I mean, like, seriously.
I got my career started as an independent by going to a conference and answering questions from the audience. I was in the audience, and I was answering questions that the audience was asking. And
you were that guy, huh?
Yeah. The guy speaking didn't know the answer. He's like, I don't know, so I answered it. And everybody was like, okay, thanks. And some guy approached me afterwards and said, hey, you clearly know what you're talking about. I've got a project that I would love to hire you for. And that's how I got my career started as an independent.
Right.
So my dad likes to use a ratio, a weighted average, I guess, for making major life decisions like this, and he calls it 70-30, which you might as well call it 80-20. But, he says
no 6-minute abs.
Yes, 5 minutes. No. So my dad calls it 70-30, and the way he describes it is, when you're making a major life decision like this, calculate your desire to do this on a scale of 1 to 100.
Okay.
And then calculate your wife's scale on you doing this on a scale of 1 to 100.
Okay.
Now take those two scales and make your wife's score count for 70% of the final score. And make your score count for 30% of the final score. Because what's best for her and your family is ultimately best for you.
Happy wife, happy life.
Exactly.
No, that makes sense for more than just the happy wife, happy life reason. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. In fact, just in any kind of situation where you have two people that have a vested interest in a thing,
right.
if one person, unless they feel like a 7, 8, 9, or 10, about at least an 8 or above, and the other person's opposed, then you should almost always go with the.
That's actually exactly what my dad says in that situation. Yeah. If you're 80% or above, go for it. This is going to be great.
If anyone wants a 10, you always give them their 10, basically, in 9s and. But yeah, because if you're both like 7s, then it doesn't matter, you know. So,
Right.
yeah, okay, all right. I think I have. I think I'm going to pass on it. I think it makes sense to pass on it. I'm my biggest fear, like I said, was missing the opportunity. But when I look at it, I mean, the fact that I almost expected like everyone I talked to would say, "John, you're an idiot. This is such an opportunity. You could make millions of dollars." Like, and then I would think, well, what if I don't care about making millions of dollars?
Right.
Right. And then, well, what are you, crazy? You know?
So let me rephrase that for you. John, you're an idiot. You could ruin your life if you take this. Get away from it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the advice from both of you and for having this emergency meeting. I feel a lot better about it now.
So my last piece of advice is, while we have talked you out of it at the moment, don't make the final decision right now.
No, I'm not. I'm going to talk to my wife some more, and I will talk to my business partner just to make sure that before I make a final.
Right, but in talking to your business partner, if you're going to say no to him and see how he feels, you're going to get yourself talked into it.
That's a good point. I've done that already 3 times now.
Yeah, you need to have a
just
decision.
have an answer. Yep.
And offer support, offer assistance, offer whatever you can to help him.
Yeah,
in
I was
this
going to say,
situation.
maybe you could help him find a CTO.
Right.
Because you're a lot better at that than he is. You've got the contacts. Right. You could probably help him find somebody.
That's a good point. Yeah. Let me do that. That's because actually, see, when he applied for the accelerators at first, because I was just the advisor at 2%, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm going to apply for the accelerators." Let's, and then I was like, "Well, I don't know if I want to." He's like, "Well, we'll just apply, and then we can either accept them or not." I was like, "Well, I've got a Hawaii trip." He said, "We'll figure out some way to work around that." And he wasn't doing it in a sleazeball way.
Right.
He figured that because it was his dream, if that it would be my dream if we got accepted into Accelerator. Of course I would do it. Of course I would do whatever needs to be done.
Right.
So, okay.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of that. It's difficult.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the advice. I think that makes sense. What you guys are saying makes it a lot easier to make this decision. It makes it clear. It's funny. I was very set that path 2 made the most sense.
That one makes the least sense to me.
Yeah. But
that's one of those squeeze pricing things where you have that middle of the road thing where people see that and they're like, so they choose the higher one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You seem more visibly relaxed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I honestly, like, what do I want to do? Like, if money weren't anything or anything like that, man, I want to, like, take a break. I don't want to do something else.
Take a break. Take a break.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Thanks again, guys.
All right.
Take care. See
you guys.
Wanna start a business, but you just know how to code. Listen to John, Josh, and Derick as we figure it out. We are the Entreprogrammers, and we'll teach you straight up.